still my town. My town.
Hi, welcome. Welcome back to Connecting Clarkston. This is season 2, episode 5. And before we introduce our guests, Katie and I want to do a quick shout out to Independence Television Studios, who's filming us today, because we just learned that this amazing crew here has just won the national award for all the good work they do. I don't know if you guys have heard of this already. It's hot off the presses. They just won the Alliance for Community Media for the 2024 Hometown Media Awards, which, John, correct me if I'm wrong, that is a national award, and over 1,000 television stations were in the running, and
Wow.
Independence Television won, and we're pretty excited for
That's
them.
awesome.
And so congratulations, big shout out. Yeah. You see me. Anyway, so congrats to them.
Yeah.
They do great work. Now, moving on to our episode. Today we have a first, I believe, because we have a mother-son duo here, which is a very powerful, very connected duo, and you've probably seen or heard of one or both of these guests. Today we have Sue Fryer and her son Steve Hyer. Fryer Hyers, the Hyer Fryers. I like how it rhymes.
Yes.
It's very good. So Sue owns Susan's Hallmark in right off of Sashabaw, right next to Kroger. And Steve owns IGD Solutions, also a school board member here in Clarkston, and has been involved in all sorts of stuff. So welcome to both of you. Thank you very much for joining us.
So Hallmark is off of Dixie, right?
Did I say Sashabaw? Yeah. I meant Dixie.
We do that sometimes.
We do that just
Yep.
to check to make sure we're paying attention, just
Yes.
like that spelling over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for coming, you guys. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
And thanks for being our first mother-son duo. We'll
Very
see how
exciting.
this goes. Yeah.
Yes. I feel like the only reason Sue agreed is because Steve.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll see how excited I am about this when we're done.
Okay.
This is a TBD situation. Oh my gosh.
Sure.
Fantastic. Well, how did you guys end up in Clarkston? Because I know you're not from here originally.
Nope.
Correct. How'd you end up here?
We're from New Jersey, and we moved here in 1992 due to a job transfer, and been in Clarkston ever since.
How'd you find Clarkston from New Jersey?
Well, my husband was out here 4 or 5 months before us, right? And he would connect with the realtor, go to different towns, and then Steve and I would fly out and go to those towns, and Clarkston was really like the front runner the entire time. This was the place to be.
I think when was it Women in Business where I ran into you? I was questioning that. But I think, were you saying that your parents both worked for Kmart?
Yes,
Is that
they
how
both
that
they both
started?
worked for Kmart in the Eastern Regional Office, and my mother started at SS Kresge and worked her way up from stock girl. I don't know what your first role was, but worked her way up into the regional office. And then ultimately my stepdad was transferred out here and said, hey, it's a package deal. If you take me, you got to take my wife. And so they decided we were moving out here. And we got here, and he really wanted to move to Lake Orion, to this house on a lake. And we went to visit it, and there was a creature that scurried into the water, and she was like, oh, heck no, we're not moving here.
The whole town was out. That was it.
It was it. It was done. That house was out, and Clarkston was in.
We had plans for that house.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
One creature.
Yep, that was it.
Do we know
'Cause
what kind of creature this was?
It was
It's
like
a rat. It was a rat.
It was probably a muskrat or something, like something very
Rat.
normal that would scurry into the water. And
Very
you know, we're ocean people. If it was a crab or a lobster or something,
Would've been
like it
fine.
probably wouldn't have been a problem. But you know, these lake creatures
gosh.
spooked us. So we ended up in Clarkston at that point, and I started 8th grade in at the time, which was Clarkston Junior High.
Yeah.
Before it was Clarkston Middle School. Before it was Clarkston Junior High again.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And so you've stayed also. And
yep.
You've obviously you just met Steve, your son, and you guys are raising your kids here as well.
Yep, I met my wife in 8th grade. She was a band geek, and
Were you in band also?
No, I was not. I was a science geek.
Okay.
So we were both nerds in different ways. We were on the high school PTA together, and we did some science club things together. And then she went to that school up the road in East Lansing, and I went to U of M. and
Thank
we would
you.
see each other once a year or so. And then we ran into each other again. I was done with school. She had a little bit left, and we ran into each other on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And I
The
invited.
biggest bar night of the year, right?
It is, and I'm not a big bar fan, and never
Yeah.
really have been. But I went out with some friends that night, and it was at Mr. B's, and she had been there quite a bit longer than I had.
That is literally very similar to the story of Larry and myself. It
Really?
was Mr. B's.
Nuh-uh.
I was there first. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, her friends were spilling various beverages on me, and
Yeah.
she invited me to sit down at her table, and I just was sick of standing because there were no seats. And I was like, sure, I'll sit down. And her friends were spilling things on me, and I invited her to the Lions game the next day because we had an extra ticket. And then she called me the next morning to tell me she couldn't go, which was kind of odd. But she
Hangover.
wanted to spend time with family, as you could imagine. Which I really didn't think she would go, but I invited her anyway.
Oh, because it's Thanksgiving.
It's Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
you know, and so then I think I went up to East Lansing, and she came down to Ann Arbor, and we would do the weekend thing for a while, and the rest was kind of history.
Nice.
And then we chose to come back to Clarkston and stay here, and I'd started my business at that point, and I thought there's no better place to locate my business than in Clarkston. I mean, I think the community here is just awesome in that everybody generally wants to help each other. And that was what I needed when I was, 25 years younger and didn't really know what I was doing. I think I maybe know it a little bit more now, but still learning. But I thought, hey, what better place than a supportive, nurturing environment like Clarkston? And then as we've gotten to the point of having kids, certainly Clarkston Schools is the place for them.
How did you? Oh, go ahead.
So how did you go from Kmart then to Hallmark?
Good question.
Very long story. You don't have time on this podcast
We
for that.
have comfy couches.
All day.
But we feel good.
I had an unexpected career change at Kmart, and Steve will make fun of me for this one because he always does every time I say it. But having a Hallmark store was a lifelong dream of mine. So just went online, filled out paperwork for Hallmark. They said, we'll contact you in 3 days. In 3 days, they contacted me. And then I did have to wait like a year and a half for a location that was in my wheelhouse. But it finally did happen.
And
so.
was it the one on Dixie?
No, it was in Holly, actually.
Was it the one on
Okay.
Sashawala?
No.
There used
Actually,
to be
There
we
was.
did.
Oh, there was.
We were
Oh.
supposed to get that one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I
But
was
when
just
Farmer
kidding.
Jack pulled out, because
Oh, yeah.
Hallmark will not let you have a location in a plaza that does not have a grocery store. So we did have the lease, everything set up for the one on Sashaba. You must have known that.
I just knew it. Yeah.
And then when
She
Farmer
really
Jack,
researched you?
yes, right. When Farmer Jack left, Hallmark pulled the plug on that one. So, but the Clarkston location was my last, actually.
Oh.
That was the one that I wanted the most, but it took a long time to get that one.
What was the first one?
Holly.
Holly,
So
okay,
Holly
then-
was first, then Heartland, then Davison, then Fenton, which Holly closed and Fenton became available, so we called it moving instead of closing, a negative. We said,
Yeah.
we're moving to Fenton.
Okay.
And then Clarkston came in 2015.
So when was the one in Holly? What year?
2003.
2003. Oh wow. Okay.
Yep.
So are they? It's a franchise, I know. But
Nope,
they're-
not a
it's
franchise, independently owned.
Independently owned.
Yep.
So they have their own flavor, all the different stores. Is there
Mm-hmm.
something unique about, like, what's different about the Clarkston store than the others, for example?
The Clarkston store has the most customers, by far, hands down, most customers. Just, it's amazing. And the mix of male, female, I would say it's 60 female, 40 male. There's lots of men that shop in Clarkston as well.
Nice. Okay, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Is that why you had your target set on Clarkston, or just because this is
because of the
home?
men? No, because,
Well, was that? Let's
No.
dig deeper.
didn't know that at the time. But no, I mean, I could walk there from my home. So
Yeah.
just, I always loved that
Location.
location. It was
Yeah.
just a great spot.
And you lived here, so it
Yeah.
makes sense. But
Yep.
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And now tell us about IGD Solutions. This is, you said 25 years ago you started it?
25 years ago.
Wow.
So I was in college and I was going to be a doctor, and I was doing the biology pre-med track, and at some point I realized that being a doctor was all about insurance companies. You know, I was like, wait a minute, they tell you how much you can make, and you know, the only way to make more money is to see more patients. And I thought that's not the reason why I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor so I could spend time with patients and help them, and you know, get to know them. And I was like, wait a minute, like, you know, I'd have to crank in, and I'm doing the math. Like at that time, medical school was, you know, $200,000. So I'm going to have a $200,000 loan. I'm going to do you know, 4 years of med school, and then some sort of residency for 2, 3, 4, up to 7 years, depending on a specialty. And when am I going to start a family or do anything else? And the insurance company is going to tell me I make $25 an office visit. Like, how is this math going to work? And so at that point, I had a professor that actually said, sooner or later, this computer stuff probably should be the main thing. And I had always done computer things. You know, I was making $50 an hour doing computer stuff at the time, and $5.25 an hour being an EMT. And so I loved the EMT work, but it was like I couldn't really afford to do it. And even being a paramedic was, you know, I think $12 an hour at the time. And I mean, that's a lot less today, but it still wasn't much 25 years ago. And so the internet was going crazy, and I thought, all right, I've always worked in technology. I know enough about it, and so I started a business that focused a lot on educational content, was how we started. And the model at the time was you build web traffic and you get ad revenue for that web traffic. So I built a number of different properties up that were curriculum supplements and helpful in the education space. And you know, the writing was on the wall come the dot-com bubble. I mean, there were like, if you had an idea, like people were funding the idea, and it didn't matter if you made money at the time. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, if you're losing money on every transaction, you can't make it up in volume. And so, you know, very few companies actually survived, you know, Amazon being probably the biggest, you know, from that era. But so many, if you remember, you know, the pets.com, and they all had crazy TV commercials, right? And none of them really survived. And so the writing was on the wall that this ad revenue model wasn't going to be sustainable. And so we had web people, so we started working for other companies. And you know, at the time, you know, my marketing material were things like 10 reasons why you should have a website, because people didn't know what that was, you know, at the time. It seems crazy to think that, but you know, it was all about, hey, why you should plant your flag and, you know, set something up, and what are the benefits of it. You know, today that's not part of the marketing material. Today it's a lot more about, you know, revamping and e-commerce and web marketing and, you know, social media that didn't even exist 25 years ago. You know, mobile devices didn't exist, you know, for at least web browsing 25 years ago. And so it's come a long way, but, you know, we help businesses, and we try to speak as plain English as we could speak, because there's so much techno jargon, you know, so putting it into like real world terms that people can understand is huge. And that's something that I did a survey probably 20 years ago of my customers, like, why do you like dealing with us? And they said, well, you don't make us feel stupid. And I was like, that's it? Like, really, of all the things that we do for you, like, that's it? And customer after customer would give us a version of that. You know, hey, you speak to us like we're real people, or you don't make us feel silly. And that's been one of our driving forces, really, the whole time.
How hard was it to make the pivot from the pre-med track to technical?
So for a little bit, I decided, well, you know what, I'm through college, and I started with a lot of AP credits, and so I thought, well, I've got a chance here to maybe change majors into something more relevant to what I'm going to do. And so for about a semester, I was thinking about a computer science major, and I took some classes, and I realized I really do hate this as much as I thought I would. And I was like, let me just finish my biology degree and get done. And so that's what I did, and got out of that. But you know, I never wanted to do the programming. Like I did enough programming, you know, just personally, and I did some projects for other people. But I was like, that's not going to be my role in this company. If I'm doing that, I'm not running the company and providing the vision. And so I always had people to do that, you know, who could keep their skills sharp. And even now I'm like, oh, I think I know how to do that. And my team is like, yeah, we'll take care of that.
We got it.
You know,
I do think one thing that's come up on the podcast a lot that I don't know that we intended, but it has just been like people's different career paths and how they got to where they are.
Yeah.
You know, like owning Hallmark you didn't see this coming, even though it was something that maybe you had always.
I was an admin most of my life.
Yeah.
I supported the president at Kmart. And when I went to this job, it was a case of, I said, this is fun. This is not work. This is fun. And I think everyone should seek out something that they like to do and want to do, because it's not like having to go to work. It's fun to go to work. I want to go to work every day.
I think sometimes though it's like a bit of maybe taking a path that you don't love. You know, like when you're saying you got your biology degree, you were kind of already committed and headed that direction. You knew you were going to go this other path, but probably all the things that led you up to that, like all came in as very beneficial.
Computers is in his blood.
I'm really glad the degree on my wall just says Bachelor of Science.
Okay.
You know, so unless somebody asks, I don't go out of my way to tell them. I have a biology degree, but you know, however many years later, one of my biggest clients collects some medical data, so I get to dust off a few of the biology terms now and then and kind of know what's going on. But I really do. I love that space, you know, the life science space, and like I said, I use it a little bit now, but. I'm glad I have learned so much over the years in being a business owner and managing people and you know, understanding how to run a successful business. And by that point of Hallmark starting, I really dreaded the phone calls that would come in about how to reconcile something in QuickBooks.
Oh, geez. He sends me texts back. I'm in a meeting right now.
It's a long meeting, Steve. That's so funny. When you were talking about your early computer work and you said you worked with curriculum, did that tie into your experience on the school board? Is that at all related?
It's like kind of related. Like I never saw myself going in that path either. But as I had a brainstorm one day, I used to work for Clarkston Schools as a student, doing computer stuff, and we built the new high school, the high school that we're in right now. You know, I did a lot of the technology work for that and moving things and transitioning, and you know, it was while I was a student, and then a few summers in college was really spent doing that kind of stuff. And so I had this brainstorm one day when I was walking home from class back to my place in Ann Arbor that, hey, maybe I'll run for school board. And so I called up my friend who was, you know, president of the union at the time, Ned Burdick, who was my physics teacher. And I said, hey, what do you think about me running for school board? And he said, oh, I think it's a great idea.
How old were you?
I was 20 at the time.
Oh, wow.
I was 21, 21 at the time.
Wow.
And he encouraged me enough, and Brent Cooley, my high school principal, encouraged me to do it. And so the filing deadline was coming up close by. This was probably in the, you know, in like March or April or something. It was a June election at the time. So I very quickly collected the signatures, ended up on the ballot, and it was me running against two incumbents for 2 seats. And I had no idea what I was doing, and so I was like, I need signs, right? Because that's what you do when you're running for office, right? You need signs. And so I was like, hey, one of my guys that I work with, I was like, find me somewhere to get signs. And so they hooked me up with a company in Clarkston here, and I went to meet with them, and I'm like, you know, how many colors do you want, and how big do you want? I'm like, well, bigger is better, right? Yeah, okay, great. You know, wires and all that. And they asked me a question I never considered the answer to in my whole life. How many do you need? And I don't know. I said, I don't know, 500? And so I ordered 500 signs, paid for it with my own money. Wow. And after, I don't know how many elections it's been, maybe 6 or 7 elections that I've been through now, you can entirely cover the city with about 125 signs.
So it was an investment.
Up until the last time I ran a pose, which would have been like 10 years ago, I think it was, I was still using brand new signs at that point.
Oh my gosh.
Are they still in my garage?
Nope, they're in my garage now. And they were in her garage for a long time on a very high shelf because you dust them off. At the time it was every 4 years, now it's every 6 years. But I ran, and as I got into it, I realized, you know, there's a math problem that I had, in that if there's 3 people running and 2 incumbents, and a third of the people vote for me and one of the incumbents, and a third vote for me and another incumbent, and a third vote for both the incumbents, like, there's no way I can win. And so I ran as hard as I could run, and I had nothing bad to say about the incumbents. I thought they were doing a fine job. I had nothing bad to say about Clarkston schools. I learned a lot about being deliberate in how you're saying things. I was doing an interview for a newspaper, and I said, "Oh, Clarkston schools is pretty good." And she kind of read it back to me, and the way she read it, it was like they're pretty good. It was like that it was like a bad thing, and I was like, "Oh, no, they're excellent, right?"
Really
it was
good.
like
Yeah.
really the choice of words really
Yeah.
matters, and so I ran and I lost, and I was irritated for about 2 weeks. Because it's really hard when your community says we don't want you to not take it personally.
Right.
It's your name on the
So
ballot.
was this your first round? This was
That
your
was my
20?
first one when I was 21.
Okay.
And then after about 2 weeks, I thought, I'm not the kind of person to pack up my stuff and go home. If
We
I
have all
set
these
my mind to
signs.
something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it. And so I kept attending school board meetings, and the second time I ran unopposed and won. And that was nice. Everybody knew I was going to run, and I had made my intentions kind of clear, and somebody was stepping down, and so it was an easy transition for me to step into that role, and that was 2001, and so I'm coming up. It's 24 years, on the school board now, and it's been an incredible ride. Like, just when I think I've done everything and learned everything and seen it all, then global pandemic comes along.
Yeah. Keeps you on
Something
your
else
toes.
happens. It's
Yeah.
like there's always new things, and as long as I feel like I'm continue to contribute something positive, I'll stick with it. If it's the kind of thing where I don't know that I'm having a positive impact, I have plenty of other things to spend my time on.
What are you looking forward to for Clarkston schools? Like, what's something you're still excited about?
So the new junior high is really exciting. So after this, I'm going over for the groundbreaking for the junior high. That is going to be awesome from I think community pride standpoint of taking a building built in the 50s that's extremely dated, and just to get it up to speed from a mechanical system standpoint was not really financially feasible. And so keeping the theater that's there, keeping the construction tech area, and then building a whole new gym, academic wing, special ed space, offices, cafeteria, all that will be all new. And the building will be on 2 different levels of the whole thing. It's not going to be now, if everybody's, I think, been there, you walk up 3 flights of stairs, it goes up 14 feet from the front to the back. So it's going to be more accessible, easier to use, a safer facility. I'm very excited about that. We've got some phenomenal things in terms of the academics, in terms of literacy coaches and math coaches, and we have other support staff that really gets at helping kids individually. So whatever that particular kid needs, we want to make sure that particular kid gets those things. And so we've come a long way, and my job right now, I feel like, is to stay the course, because these are things that we've put in place over really the last 5 years, and we need more time to really have them. They're already producing some great results, but really to have the kindergartners that were around when we started, they had a COVID year that wasn't extremely helpful to them, and so getting them up to speed now in 4th and 5th grade. I think seeing how these systems help them as they get into the middle school and the junior high, that's really going to be, I think, phenomenal. I think we're going to see some great results, and we're going to continue to tweak and expand that. And so I'm really excited for those things. Our superintendent, Dr. Sean Ryan, was a student teacher when I was in 9th grade. So I've been on the school board as he went from a science teacher to an assistant principal to a principal to deputy superintendent, now superintendent, and he is excited every day to come to work, and whatever challenge comes along, he confronts it head on, and I am so proud on behalf of the community that he's our superintendent, and he is leading us to an extremely bright future for all of our students in our community.
That's quite an endorsement
It
for
is.
Clarkston Schools.
Yeah.
Well done, and Sean Ryan. Real quick, what's the anticipated date to be finished with all the construction?
It's going to be, and part of this construction too is air conditioning across the district. So when I started, like, air conditioning was don't bring it up. The community's not willing to support it, and now the community has really demanded it. And so elementary schools and all the spaces that aren't air conditioned will have air conditioning. So that will be happening over the next 2 summers, and that phase of the project will be done. For the junior high, it's really a 5-year project. So the new gym goes into that space between the current gym and the theater, that hill that's there where you go in the front entrance. The new gym will be right there with an auxiliary gym. Then the gym gets knocked down. Academic wing gets built over there, like on that softball field toward the elementary school. And then everybody moves into the academic wing, and then we're gonna knock down some of the places behind there. And that's when it gets tricky, because like the cafeteria is roughly going where the cafeteria is now. So it's gonna be, the last couple of years are gonna be really challenging and moving kids around and building. But we'll have a great new fine arts area attached to the theater, new STEM and project spaces. But it'll look like a very different school. And so like classrooms are called multi-use learning environments now. I don't know that we're going to use that term, but
rolls right off the tongue.
The hallways are called extended learning areas.
Hallways?
And so the hallway is no longer a hallway. It's like a big space that has furniture in it. And the idea is you can spill out of the classroom, and kids can do projects in different areas. So it's going to be set up so that whatever educational program comes along, like in the next, say, 30, 40, 50 years, the building could support whatever it is that we might want to do with it. Because what I've learned in the last 24 years is however it is right now, it's going to be different at some point. And so you want to have the flexibility. Instead of putting a curb in, it's like, can we put a gate in there? Because we might want that open at some point. And those are, we've redone parking lots in different configurations, and the more flexible we can make it, I think the more longevity we're going to have out of it.
Towards the beginning of our podcast, Greg Need had come on with us and had talked a little bit about what's going to happen there. And at that point we were saying, and I think it was still pretty new, but there were a lot of people in the community asking questions like, how do we keep the kids safe while this is happening? And I know he had talked a lot about the company that's been hired, has a lot of experience with this, and is like fully equipped to handle everything and take care of, like
The air quality.
and
safety and all that
yes.
stuff. But
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, there's sort of the safety of the building, and like unfortunately we're in a world where lockdown drills and
Yes.
compartmentalizing the building is important. We're not, I'm not a believer in like hardened security as much. Like I think having the office in a space where you can see the parking lot and have a glimpse of what's going on, have a good camera system so you can see what's going on, just locking your doors and things like that. I think that's very common sense in today's day and age. Some schools are putting in bulletproof glass and things like that. Like, that's not a direction that we're going in. I don't think it's worth the cost. I think having and supporting our kids is really the answer. Unfortunately, school safety is that you have never know when something's going to come up, but taking care of kids, and as situations come up, making sure we track down every single thing. It's usually on Snapchat or something like that. And our team, along with our sheriff liaison officers, we track down every single thing. And a lot of times that's a lot. And it always happens on the weekend, and tracking those things down, making sure we have a great support system. I think that's a lot about what safety, means today. And then we have a great architect and a great construction manager. We've got a great security consultant who reviews all those things, and he just did an assessment again in all of our buildings where he goes around and says, oh, this door isn't locked, it should be. What's your policy about that? How do we make sure that shouldn't happen again? And so sometimes that door is to a mop closet or something, but it should be locked. And so those are the kind of things that we're constantly working on. And then when you think, it's not like we have more administrative staff than we had a few years ago, but what we've asked of them is so much more. With all those things. And I think it's a partnership between the schools, the teachers, the kids, the parents, the community. We all really have to work together to make sure, Clarkston is the place we want it to be.
Well, I was thinking when you were talking about like this community service mentality, which obviously you've had for the last 24 years, and I know it probably comes from your mom. I'm just throwing that out there because I know you've been involved in some community like organizations, and can you talk a little bit about what organizations you've been involved in the past over the years?
The chamber. Used to work a lot with the chamber. What was I on? The scholarship committee, the expo committee, the taste committee.
I think you're on the board for a little bit.
Oh yeah, I was on the board.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. And we're both in the local business network, LBN. there's a Clarkston chapter.
Okay.
And we meet twice a month, and we have a good group of people there. Steve actually made me join there 20, I just got my certificate the other day for 20 years in LBN.
Nice.
And
So tell me about that, because I'm not sure I'm familiar with LBN and who
it's
runs
a
that.
referral
Okay.
networking group. Actually, Chuck Gifford did live in Clarkston. He founded it, and he's in Texas now. And there's chapters all over the country that he runs and takes care of.
Is that like an always growing group?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, COVID was interesting for in-person networking. So,
Right.
you know, a lot of those groups went to Zoom, and, you know, it's not quite the same to building relationships and connecting with people,
Right.
as you
Yeah.
could imagine.
Right.
So now Clarkston we're back in person, and we meet twice a month. And the idea is you learn about each other, and you figure out how can we help you get business.
So do you meet at like a different business every?
No, we try to find a location, and like we used to meet at a restaurant, and then through COVID we went online, and then when we came back, we now meet at Stars and Stripes.
Oh, yeah.
Athletics,
Yep.
and so they are not having classes at 7:30 in the morning, so it's perfect for us
Okay.
Nice,
because we meet just in the lobby there, and there's I don't know 15 or 16 of us now. We used to have over 20, and so we're looking to grow and add some people to that group. And again, it's that Clarkston mentality of, hey, how do we help each other?
Yeah.
You can only have one person, like one realtor, one mortgage person, like per chapter. So you
Okay.
can't overlap businesses.
And is it a lifetime membership? Is it yearly? How does it
No,
does it evolve?
you can do half a year or a year renewals. Most people stay. Like, well, how long have you been? He's one of almost the founding members.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been 24 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
and
Wow.
But yeah,
lot
when Kmart, you know, their troubles were well documented
Yeah.
out there. When you know, and my mother had that year and a half before getting her store, and so I was trying to help her get up to speed on, you know, networking wasn't something she had ever done.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, hey, come to this chamber meeting.
Yeah.
You know,
Was
come
she
to
bringing
this
a blue
LBN
light?
meeting.
And like, there's a blue light. Am I bringing my blue light?
left the blue light
Did
home.
you? Oh, dang it.
Yeah. So it was interesting because like I had been doing it for many years at that point, and you know, it was like, all right, this is a retail business, a different kind of a thing, but like all of these things that I'm doing certainly are going to help Hallmark. And so, you know, Holly didn't have, you know, I think they had a tiny little chamber at the time, but
Yeah.
you know, Clarkston certainly was much more well established, and so it was a lot about, you know, just getting out there and letting people know what's going on, and you know,
Yeah,
so.
he was pushing me. You know, people have to get to know you.
Yeah.
Right.
They want to do business with you.
Right.
You've got to be in front of them, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's true. But
That's true.
it's like he's the parent and I'm the child.
I don't know what the word is I want to use, but I feel like you really stick with things. Like nothing is like a blip on the radar. Everything is 20
that's
plus
very-
years
Yes.
with you.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
accurate. So,
Yeah.
again, like when I decided, like after being 2 weeks of irritated that I was going to do it, like
Yeah.
when I decide I'm going to do something, like there's probably nothing that's going to get in my way that would make me stop. And I mean, I have done some things over the years and thought, I don't think I'm having that positive impact, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit. And because I think, you know, for me, like time is the only truly limited commodity.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to make sure the way I'm spending my time is absolutely worthwhile. And so, you know, we have no idea how long we have left. And so today better be a great experience, and I've got to do today to make sure everything that happens is the best that it could possibly be, because it could be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so that is that's my outlook, and I want to make sure that, you know, every day is that way, and that means, you know, spending time with family and doing cool things with my kids, and we just got back from a camping trip this weekend. You know, we're going on a family trip next weekend. It's a lot about those experiences and
Annual
and
parties, toss
Sometimes it is.
at your mom's, which is pretty
Sometimes it
amazing.
is.
We kind of talked about that
Yeah.
before. Just
Yeah.
a shout out. An audience member did ask if we could maybe have that party one more time. Was it you?
It was you.
Okay, right. It was me. Fine, it was me. Just think about it.
That's
Just think
actually
about
why we brought you here today.
Bring the party
Gosh,
back.
it's
It
so
is-
funny.
What-
We
go
do
ahead.
need to talk about robotics.
Oh yeah.
And can you just give us like the run through on kind of, Because when you were in Clarkston schools, was there a robotics team? I guess I don't know.
No, I'm too old for
Okay.
that. So there was actually a robotics team at the Tech Center at
Okay.
Oakland Schools Northwest here. And so Clarkston ran that school at the time, and then Oakland Schools took it back over. And then they had a program there called Awesome Tech, Oakland Science Math Technology Academy. And so Oakland Schools decided they were going to close the program. And so our superintendent at the time thought, this is a great program, like we could take it over. And so we did something that was like earth-shattering in the education world. Is that we actually recruited the two teachers that started the program and ran it to come to Clarkston. So Kyle Hughes and Mike Olson are now, the terrace, I think is the appropriate name, is the basement, right, on the other side of the school here. So we brought the program over, and it's Clarkston Science and Math Tech Academy now, and we've expanded it and invested in it and tried to reinvigorate it because obviously technologies change, and the curriculum has been updated and evolved, and there's an art component to it now that wasn't there, but it was really that science, technology, engineering, math, or STEM focus that we were going for. And so when we did that, we got a robotics team with it. And so I didn't know too much about it at all. And one of the years when I was school board president, I was doing a welcome back speech for all the staff, and a friend of mine who was my chemistry teacher, Ed York, introduced me to Kyle Hughes. And I said, oh, it's nice to finally meet you. You know, I've heard so many great things about you. And she said, hey, why don't you come check our program out? And I was like, sure. And anytime anybody invited me to check something out, like I say yes, I try to fit it in because I love to learn about all the great things our kids are doing. And I will say, when I started on the school board, like I wasn't married, I had no kids, I had a lot more time then.
Yeah.
So to do all the classes and visit all the things, like now that I have kids and I'm doing my own school things with my kids, like it's much harder now. But I went to check out the program, and they were giving me a kind of a dog and pony show of the kids were taking me around and showing me all the different components and parts of the facility. And I thought, all right, like just kind of seeing how it was building, I'm like, there's an ask here. Like, are they going to ask me to sponsor? Like, is it, what are they going to ask me for? And the ask at the end was, will you help us with our website? And I was like, that's an easy one. Yeah, of course, sure. And so I started going in and coming in once in a while, work with a group of kids, and there was a website award at the time, and so we tuned the website up, and the kids were all working on it, and they won the website award. And while I was there, this kid was working on this essay, and he's like, do you want to help me with this? And I was like, what are you doing? And I was just getting ready to leave, and he said, it's the Chairman's Award. And I said, what is that? And he kind of explained, it's the highest award that you can win, and you submit this essay, and then you do a presentation. And he said, it's got to be 10,000 characters, and right now it's 14,000 characters. I said, well, when is it due? And he said, at midnight tonight. It was probably 4 o'clock.
Right.
And I was like, all right, let's dive in. And so I started helping him with this, and later on, the kids were doing a presentation, and I was like, this is your 5-minute chairman's presentation? I was like, we could do a little better, I think. Like, let's start working on this. And so I became the presentation award guy. And so I worked with the team for almost 10 years here in Clarkston, and we won the highest award that you could win, the World Championship Chairman's Award at the time, and got in the Hall of Fame. Wow. And so I worked myself out of a job because they didn't need me anymore because you can't win it again. Yeah. You can now, but you couldn't then. And so I started judging. And so now I'm one of the head judges in robotics. And then the advocacy work that I started when I was with the team of bringing kids to Washington and Lansing, we actually started a nonprofit called the Student Association for STEM Advocacy. And so we run a conference every June in Washington, D.C. that's coming up right around the corner. So we bring almost 300 kids every year and their adult mentors to Washington, D.C. to educate them on how to talk to Congress. And then the kids go up and meet with their senators and representatives and tell them why robotics is important and STEM is important and education is important and all these bipartisan things that seemingly are common sense that don't happen. Kids engage on them and they make way better advocates than adults. But I started that by really taking what I learned being on the school board and advocacy and saying, hey, how do we apply that here? And the kids loved it. I was kind of surprised they enjoyed it as much, but then we grew it from just Clarkston kids going to some other kids going to more teams and then turned it into a conference. And this is the 11th one, I think it is, that we're running this June.
Nice.
So that's my robotics tale.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that is a lot. Are you, when you think about like talking about growing in Clarkston and like just the ever evolving landscape of our town. Like, are there things you're excited about? Like, are you excited? What makes you, like, I know you love to go to work, the people you work with are great, but what about Clarkston is like exciting to you about the future, what we have going on?
Just continued growth. There's just so much growth going on. And when we first moved here, you know, I used to drive to Troy, and I could drive 20 miles to Troy and pass one car. Now, you know, everything's so built up, and Clarkston's just a thriving, growing community, and people are great. I'd just like to see more of that.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the construction on 75. That's
Yes.
a real drag when then Dixie is down to 2 lanes, and then
Yeah.
everybody takes Holcomb, and then the bridge on Davisburg
Oh
Road
my
is
God.
closed,
I
and you
know.
run out of ways to
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
get around. No, I think you know. I think Clarkston, like seeing new houses behind the high school here, and some of the new things going in. I think that's really exciting to, you know, add some folks to our community. I think like this is a happening place. Like it's still weird to me. Like when we moved here, it was like downtown was all real estate offices. And you know, it was like you didn't see anybody downtown.
Yeah.
And now when people go to like concerts in the park on a Friday, which is, you know, starting next month, it's like, oh, let's go to dinner first and then we'll go to a concert. Like it's cool to be
Yes.
downtown. And I
Right.
think, what the heck happened?
Yeah,
You
I know.
know.
Anna and I just were downtown
On Saturday.
Saturday with
Yep.
the Candle Bar and then
Yeah.
Honcho, and yeah,
It's the place to
I
be.
just
Good
saw the
stuff.
Candle Bar. I'd never even seen that. I took a
Oh,
walk
you're
the
gonna
other day and I
love the
saw
Candle
that.
Bar.
fun.
I feel
And,
like you're
I mean,
gonna
the
love
new
the Candle
Rudy's
Bar.
Bistro, you know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, it's very exciting to think the downtown's gonna be even more invigorated.
Yeah.
And I laugh, like when people talk about, oh, we have parking issues downtown. It's like, when we moved here in 1992, the hot topic was parking issues downtown.
Right.
Like not much has changed.
Right.
We're always gonna be talking about that.
Yeah.
But the harder it is to get down there, the more people are gonna wanna be there, I think. So
Yes.
I think with all the parades that we have and community events and Taste of Clarkston and concerts and
Yeah.
you know all the great things that Parks and Rec does, like it makes it a great place to be. You know, I was just on my way out of town for the weekend, you know, when the food truck rally was going on, and I had to drive down Dixie about an hour before it started, and it was like already jam-packed.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a great event. I'm
Yeah.
disappointed I couldn't make this one, but you know, Amy from the Pilates studio was there and said, we were so many people there, you know, we talked to so many great people.
Right.
You know, I think that that's a defining characteristic of our community, is that we love to come together and do those kind of events, and you know, it's a very family-friendly place. And I think that's awesome. And you know, we think, oh, hey, all these people from Taste or from out of town maybe, and it's like the chamber has done zip code surveys and things. They're all from Clarkston,
Right.
you know, maybe or the immediately surrounding
Right.
areas. But
Yep.
one of the things I really like about the community is that we welcome outsiders in. Like we love Clarkston and we support each other and help each other, but it's not like, oh, you're from over there, so
Right.
it's like everything is the Clarkston area.
Yeah.
You know, it's the Clarkston community.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's very purposeful, that we want to be welcoming to anybody who wants to participate in what we have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. You're speaking of food, and this is, and I'm not joking, literal question from our audience. I think it might be your son, but he did write on the thing, what's for dinner tonight? I don't know if you guys caught that.
I did see that.
It was in the,
Oh,
so
my
you can
gosh.
answer that if you want, but
He is a character.
Well,
so
I am
funny.
going to the groundbreaking and then a school board meeting tonight, so
Okay.
he
So
will be
he's-
figuring out
is he at my
figuring that
house?
out with
So he's like-
his
He's
grandma
at your house, so
or mom
Okay.
tonight.
yeah,
that was cracking me up.
whatever he wants.
That's so funny. Before we let you guys go, we like to have our last question, which is, who would you recommend that we have on next to continue this conversation about our town? Anybody you have in mind?
Well, we were thinking about that on the way, and in our LBN, like, there really isn't a Clarkston-based business. My favorite business is just a little bit past Clarkston in Waterford.
That would be okay.
That's allowed.
Yeah.
We'll allow it.
I think Deanna from Waterfall Jewelers.
Oh, well, we had Andy Brown from Waterfall.
Oh,
Jeweler
did
on.
you?
Yeah, love that
Okay.
place. Love that
Yeah,
store.
me too.
Those
That's
people
my
are
favorite.
great.
Steve says that Deanna is my dealer.
That's so funny.
It's a little bit of an obsession,
Yeah.
a little bit of an addiction.
That's okay.
It is, just a little bit.
Yeah,
little
they're
bit.
great people.
They are.
It's just that she's going to talk to the people, and that's all, right? There just
Yeah.
happens to be some
Yeah.
jewelry involved.
Yeah, we just talk. We
I
just chat.
I don't think there's any shortage of people that you could have on. I think there's a lot of people on the chamber board that I serve with that would make great guests here, doing a lot of awesome things. My partners in the Pilates business are both Clarkston folks that I met through Clarkston that exemplify what a great place this is. I think my school board has some great folks on. I know you talked to Greg. We've got some other folks that have been around a little bit. When I started on the school board, Janet Thomas was on the school board. I was 22 when I got elected. She had already served on the school board for 26 years at that point. So it was a great opportunity for me to, shut my mouth and open my ears and learn, what that was all about. But she would make a great person as well, still around in the community.
Is that the record, 26 years?
She served at least a couple more after that. I don't know
Did
what
she?
the record
Wow.
is, but I've got 2 more years left in this term, and whatever the election holds, there's an election this November for school board members, and so we'll see how that goes. But my kids are they're just finishing 5th grade and 8th grade, and so I've got a few more years. I didn't probably time it the right way, but like I said, as long as I'm still positively contributing, I feel like I've got some fire still left in the furnace.
Yeah, we've got some help putting out some more signs.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
You're not doing anything.
You still have
For
100
sure.
signs left?
Yes, I still have plenty of signs. Plenty
That's
of
so
signs.
great.
We're here for it.
We're here for that. Yes. Well, we really appreciate you both
Yes,
coming on to
thank
talk
you.
with us today. Like, you guys have so much history in our town, and you've given and served in so many different ways. And I feel like our whole mission is how, connecting Clarkston, but also just highlighting all the amazing people that make our community a place that we love, people leave, they come back, they stay. Like, it's just, this is part of the reason.
I think what
So
you
thank
two are doing is great.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
just highlighting, you're using an awesome Clarkston facility here that's one of our
Absolutely.
best kept secrets, I
Award
feel
winning.
like.
Yeah.
We can say.
Nationally
Award-winning,
award
yeah.
winning.
That's right.
I think
big
that's
deal.
awesome, and just highlighting all the different great things that people are doing. Certainly I think, the people that come on, they're not doing those things for any kind of recognition, but
Right.
there's so many great projects and programs, and just at community awards, the things that get highlighted every
Yeah.
year, just to shine a light on those things and make more people aware of it. I think that's awesome. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate it.
We
Yeah.
can cheers to that.
This podcast is brought to you by Independence Television, located inside Clarkston High School. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Independence Television, Independence Township, or Clarkston Community Schools.